welcome back to another Film Geek movie review. In just a moment, I am going to walk my happy butt over to the futon to check out the Shudder original, Night of the Reaper. Night of the Reaper is directed by Brandon Christensen, and it's starring Jessica Clement, Ryan Robbins, and Summer H. Howe. It tells the story of a young woman who comes back home from college just to have a little visit and gets roped into babysitting one night. And wouldn't you know it, there is a psychotic killer out on the loose who's killing babysitters. Sounds slightly familiar. Well, here's something else to throw on that slightly familiar category, and that is that this is a Halloween-themed slasher that takes place during the early 80s. Well, it looks like the early 80s. Now, what I mean by the 80s is not the neon color-soaked 80s that the TV wants you to believe existed. This is the real 80s, and there was only 3 real colors used in the 80s, unless you consider wood paneling a color, and that was brown, pea yellow, and puke green. Those were the 3 primary colors of the 80s, and I'm really getting sick of everything looking like a Rubik's Cube when they make these movies, so I digress. I'm actually looking forward to this movie because I do love slashers. I love Halloween-themed horror films. I feel like there needs to be tons of them, and this is part of Shudder's lead up to Halloween 2, so I'm also looking forward to that. But you know what? It is enough of me sitting here jibber-jabbering on. It is time for me to get over to the futon, because I don't have just one person waiting on me today. I have my faithful movie feline Haku and my dog Beans decided to come over and watch a movie with us. He's normally very camera shy. I've really never been able to get him on camera, but he's sitting over there, so I'm kind of hoping that I can get him this time. Well, it's enough of the jibber jabber. It is time for me to get over to the futon because I need to watch Night of the Reaper. Just getting done watching Night of the Reaper, and guys, I really enjoyed this movie. It didn't have me at first. It took a little while for this movie to warm up to me, but then once it did, I had a great time. So let's get this party started, shall we? We're going to get things started with negatives, then move into the positives to end the video on the ever so important high note. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the pacing of this film. Now, the movie's not necessarily long. It's just around an hour and a half long, and it flows along fairly well. It's just for the first half of this movie, it does seem like a very typical slasher film that happens to take place in the 80s. The film does a lot of homage to other horror directors and creators of the time period. There's a lot of cinematography that looks very John Carpenter-esque, and you see some of the elements that you would see in the old horror films of the 80s. And so for a little while there, it just seems like something I'd seen before 100 times. I was enjoying it. I thought the investigation portion of it was interesting, but in all honesty, the first half of this film just felt like a very typical slasher film. And also, if you're a person who really enjoys the overwhelming violence and gore that comes with slasher movies, this one's more like an old school slasher, a good bit of blood, one really gory kill, but in all honesty, it's not necessarily something that I think a lot of the old gore hounds are going to find a lot out of. If you're somebody that's something that you just have to have in your horror films, if you gotta have it in your slashers especially, this is a fairly low gore slasher film. Now, the gore that's there does look good, but it's not necessarily something that's too awful crazy or in your face. One kill in particular, yes, but everything else is fairly tame. So the first part of this movie, it just really seems like a very average run-of-the-mill investigative slasher where you're following along this investigation of trying to figure out who the killer is. And there's not a lot going on when it comes to the action during this time either. So it doesn't have another kill or anything like that for the slasher for almost a good half an hour. So it just kind of seemed like this was going to be a very typical slow burn slasher kind of film. Well, then you get to the second half half of this movie, and that's when things get turned on its ear, and I don't even think you can necessarily call the film a slasher once you get to that point. So let's just roll into those positives, shall we? Now, the first thing I want to talk about is our lead actress in this, Jessica Clement. She does an outstanding job as our final girl in this movie. This character was so well fleshed out. Right away, as this film starts up, you really start to get behind this character as she's just going through her daily stuff. She comes home from college for a short visit. It's around the Halloween time of the year, so it's a nice autumn weekend. She comes home just for a little bit of time. Some things happen. She decides that she's going to help out her friend and babysit for this person while she's on her little vacation. So you're like, wow, this is a really nice person. She's got good friends. She's got a good heart. I'm really behind her. So our final girl is crafted and done in an extremely well way, and I really like the performance. All in all of the actors in this movie do a great job making a very good film. It's not cheesy horror. It doesn't try to be, people aren't trying to act like the actors in the 80s horror slashers. This film does pay homage, but it's not trying to be an 80s slasher. It's a modern film that takes place during the 80s, and I really enjoyed that. I did really like the cinematography in this film. I did see a lot of influences from other horror directors, and I did think that that was a neat way to show homage, rather than just doing like, oh look, this just like the family setting in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Oh, and we're gonna follow this guy around with the camera just like in Halloween. It was more subtle than that, and I thought it was really cool the way they did that. Then when you get into the second act, or I wouldn't say the second act, second half of this film, when what the real thing is going on starts to reveal itself, the movie does a 180, and I wouldn't even call this movie a slasher film anymore. It becomes something completely different, and I really enjoyed the way that this movie plays out. It no longer is an homage to 80s slasher films. It starts to become its own thing. It's a modern horror film that's told during the 80s. It has nothing else to do with 80s slashers or anything like that, and I thought that was a really cool thing to throw into this movie because it really needed it. Now, even though there isn't a lot of kills and a lot of thrills in this film, there are some really good practical effects. There is one really solid out of nowhere kills, and I really enjoyed it. It caught me off guard because, in all honesty, the movie hadn't really done anything like it leading up to it, so it catches you off guard in just the right way. This film does dedicate a lot of its time to jump scares and all, to kind of drive home that, slasher vibe to it. The opening of this film also, I forgot to bring this up, I thought it was excellent. The opening of this film does a really great job of drawing you in and letting you know exactly what to expect from this killer and what is going to happen later on in this film. So the opening of this really stands up there with openings just like in the Scream franchise. So in all, guys, I would have to say that this is a really solid, fun, sit at home and enjoy it on your streaming service, Shudder. And in honesty, if you're a fan of horror, of course, you already have Shudder probably, but if you're somebody who's still on the fence and you're wondering, is this something that I would want to get a subscription to, I would say that this is definitely a good movie to check out if you're thinking about getting that free week trial. And one last thing to talk about, I do think that this movie would have done well in theaters. Shudder does do that sometimes with some of their movies. They release them in theaters to kind of see how they do, because there's tons of us horror fans out there who absolutely prefer seeing our horror movies in theaters, and I do appreciate that with you, Shudder. And I honestly think that this would have been a good one. This one could have done pretty good in theaters, but then again, that's just my opinion. So there you have it, guys. A solid, fun, good time to sit down and watch. Give it time, because yes, the beginning portion of this film, you're just going to sit there and go, okay, so what's the big deal? What's so great about it? But then, boom, this movie just punches you in the face and becomes something completely different. So there you have it, guys. Another one in the bag. So thanks again for checking out the Film Geek. If you liked what you saw here today, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and give me the old thumbs up so I know you like what you're seeing. And if there's one more thing you can do, folks, that is keep watching movies. You know I'm gonna.